But what I wanted to talk about is, first of all, black and white, and what kind of images, what I'm looking for when I'm thinking black and white, both when I'm shooting and then when I'm processing afterwards. So I tend to, as I'm out shooting, think, wow, this picture will be pretty good in black and white. And I base that on what kind of lines and tones and graphics and kind of what I see in the picture. And so when I see a photo, when I see a scene like this, I'm thinking, well, that's pretty cool, but that's going to make a great black and white. And as I'm shooting, I'm very often thinking, what's going to happen to this picture? Oops, I didn't mean to do that, but I did mean to do that. What's going to happen to this picture when I take it to black and white? And in the good old film days, we used to use a lot of filters to adjust the colors of the scene to render in black and white when you're shooting just black and white film. Now, don't need to carry all those filters. It's easier, better, faster, everything you can think of to do in Lightroom or Photoshop or other programs also. But like I say, we're gonna work on Lightroom today. So as I'm looking at scenes, and we're going to process these in a few minutes, I'm really looking at the graphic elements of scenes, and I do a visualization when I'm shooting quite a bit, and I'll squint and I'll look at things as I'm squinting. So if you're out shooting with me and you see me kind of squinting at something, it's not because I have bad eyesight. It's because when you squint, you eliminate detail and some color, and you get just the very graphic elements of a scene. So if you squinted at this picture, you would see that you have this big open space in the top. You have these nice shapes of this fountain in the foreground, and the buildings on the right, and the line of trees on the left. And I do that a lot. I'll look at a scene and think, well, what's going to happen when I eliminate color? And as I squint and just look through it, I can sometimes get rid of color, but I've learned over the years to see in black and white rather than seeing in color. So a scene like this, yeah, that's gonna make a pretty nice black and white. And so in Lightroom, I start off jumping over to the develop module, and I'm gonna close the panel on the left here just to make our picture a little bit larger. And Lightroom, or Adobe, about a year ago, I guess it was, maybe it's sometimes last year, added a profile area to the top. It used to be hidden down below, but now they have a profile. And if your photo was made before last year and it's been sitting in Lightroom, your profile might be Adobe standard, which changes the color. But if you select Adobe monochrome, Adobe says this is a better starting place for your images in black and white. So newer photos, when you just click on black and white in the upper right side of the picture, will automatically go to Adobe monochrome. Older ones might not. So that's something to watch for, but they say it gives you a better tonal value right off the start. So most photos in black and white, I want to have several things happening. I want them to be very crisp, meaning I want sharp detail. I want some good contrast, and I want the blacks to be very black. I love blacks. I want those deep, rich blacks, especially when I'm making a print. And so one of the first things I do is I'll convert it to black and white, then I'll look at my histogram and see where the black is falling. And if I move my mouse over the left side, over the arrow on the top, it'll show the clipping on the blacks. And clipping means that you're losing detail in those areas. So on the screen, you'll see blue. That means I'm losing detail in those areas of the blacks. And that is absolutely fine by me. In fact, I first thing I usually do is hop on the blacks and make it even blacker. You can click on that and it'll stay on. So that means that everything that's blue is pure black, no detail. And I love that. That's a personal taste, but I want that to have that rich punch, that very heavy black punch. Of course, there's some photos that don't go that way, but most of my photos in black and white and color actually have a real rich black. There's no particular order in which I do things in the conversion process, but usually I start with the blacks so I can see where the blacks are, and then I check my highlights, my lighter areas, and see how bright they are and if I need to adjust them. And I usually go to highlights and bring them down. So if you can see on the left side, the wall there or along the lamps, now I'm picking up detail that I was missing in the wall there. I don't want to lose detail in my highlights like I do in my shadows. I don't care if it goes dark, too dark in the shadows, because that adds punch, it adds intrigue, it adds drama to some photos. But I rarely want to blow out my highlights. Now, when you get spots like this was at dusk, and so you have street lights, yeah, they're going to blow out. They're going to be white. That's fine. So, you know, same thing on the histogram. If you go to the other side, you click on that, and actually they're not blowing out. What do you know? Looks like they would be. If I increase my whites, you can see they show up as red when your highlights are blown out. So I'm going to bring my whites back down to 0, and pretty amazing I haven't blown out the highlights there. Let me turn that off. So as I lower my highlights, I will bring that brightness down a little bit. I have found that I rarely change my exposure or my contrast. I'd rather individually work on the shadows and the blacks or the highlights and the whites than do both at the same time. Sorry, both at the same time. So if you're doing contrast, you're changing the blacks and the whites at the same time. You're not able to manually control that. So in this case, if I punch the contrast up, you can see now I'm really making my whites too white and my blacks too black. So I don't want to change my contrast on very many pictures. Some I might, but one like this.
What about temperature and tint? Do you ever touch that when you're doing black and white?
I'm sorry?
Temperature and tint.
Yes.
Do you ever deal with that with black and white?
Absolutely. And we'll get to that in a minute. But yes, tint, so yeah, both of them. Absolutely. So as I'm mixing the tones, then I'm also getting down in the clarity and the texture. So clarity adds contrast to the midtones. So you can see as I increase the clarity, now it's really making the fountain here in the middle really feel pretty sharp. And then texture adds sharpening to the finest details in the picture, the very fine detail. It doesn't touch big areas. So you can see that the spots around there, as I adjust the texture, will become sharper, but it won't affect things like the side of the building here or up in the building up there or the edges of the cars down here. So texture is a good thing to punch on things. And dehaze does some interesting things to black and whites too. So dehaze tends to adjust the blues in a photo. So this one had a blue sky. So as I increase my dehaze, now for me, that's not a very realistic look in the sky. You can see how it's getting kind of funky there. So I'm not gonna punch the dehaze. But if you're trying to open your shadows up a little bit, going the other way can do some pretty interesting things. So if you like a real long grayscale in a scene like this, that might be kind of cool there. I might even give it a little more contrast and backing that off.
Loren, can I ask a question? When you had it light up with the reds and the blue, what did you click on the histogram?
So it's the arrows on the very top. Left is the shadows, right is the highlights.
Thank you.
or if you just move your cursor over it, you don't have to click on it, but you can also hold down the, I forget which keys it is. There's a key combination. My brain just went out on me, but you know, that's the easy way to do it. So very important in black and white toning is adjusting the color and the individual colors of the scene. So down in the B&W area down here, you can adjust just the blues or the reds or the whatever colors you want. So we had a blue sky in this one. So if I jump on this and drag the blue to the left, I'm going to darken that sky. And I can make that look however I want. I can make it look white. I can make it look black. Or I can just do in between. So it was a, you know, dusk scene. Do you want it to be black? However you want it to look. The foreground was kind of ugly street lights. So it was orange. So if I adjust the orange on this, I can darken down the whole scene, or I can really brighten it up by adjusting the colors rather than the exposure. So you can see as I'm adjusting this, the sky is not moving at all because the sky has no orange in it. So I use that quite a bit. So you can see we have a real bright stripe here on the side of this car, on the right side, which happens to be yellow. So if I get on the yellow slider, that's going away. And I'm also picking up detail on in the stones to the left of the fountain, because that's yellow light coming out of that building reflecting back down there. So many times I'll click on the color and see what color do I have going here, and then come back to black and white. My settings haven't changed, but I can adjust things individually based on that, based on what was I seeing happening. Now, if I don't know what color something is and I want to try to adjust that color, I can click on the adjustment tool here, which I call the adjustment gomer. Click on that gomer, and if I don't know what color something is, say the van, I wanted to try to adjust it and I have no idea what it is. So I get this cursor over this van on the right, and as I hold down on my mouse and drag, whatever color that is, it's going to make darker. If I drag up, it'll make it brighter. So down is darker, up is brighter. So it's showing that it's orange. So you can see the orange slider on the right moving, and only the orange slider. So in this case, it's not doing me any good because I wanted to make that van darker, but it's changing the whole scene, and that's not helping me out. So all of these are global adjustments. So if you change the orange in one part of the picture, you're changing the orange in the whole photo, or same with the blue. So you have to watch what's happening to the whole photo, because you might get some weird results by doing that. You can mask off certain areas, but at that point you don't have individual color control. So it can be a little bit trickier. Question earlier about changing the color temperature. So if I change the color temperature on this, watch what happens. As I go yellow, more yellow, that sky really changes because I took the blue out of the sky and I had darkened that down. If I go more to the blue, I make that sky even blacker. So I'll slide this thing around, and you know, when I go back to the color, it might look absolutely horrid, which is fine. We're in black and white. So you can do the same thing with the tint. It doesn't have, sometimes, depends on the scene, doesn't have as big an effect as the color temp, but you know, you can play with that and see what happens. So I'll use those things an awful lot. So this is a scene in Italy, and the light wasn't treating me well, and I overexposed a little bit, and the sky was putrid, and things weren't good. So it hit me, well, this might be a pretty nice black and white. So click on black and white, and my Adobe monochrome profile pops up because it's a newer photo. And so as I'm toning any photo, I'm thinking about the center of interest first, and making adjustments for it first, and then global adjustments that attack the center of interest, and then if I have local adjustments to do later, I'll try that. So in this case, I'm just gonna bring my highlights down a little bit. Now again, I don't want to do my exposure, because then I'm gonna start losing detail in the darker areas. So if I brought my exposure down to where the face of that should be, actually this one doesn't look so bad. Maybe we'll do a little bit. So I brought my highlights down all the way. Let's go back to color and see what color those were. So that's pretty warm there. So if I change my orange, now I'm just going to adjust that building. And so you can see, just by changing the orange, I'm adding detail to the building. So again, it's seasoned to taste, however you want it. My guess is there's some yellow in there too. So again, if I zeroed those back out and I wasn't sure what color that was, click on the adjustment tool there, that little gomer, click on the picture, drag down to make that color darker. So you can see both the yellow and the orange sliders are moving now. So if I wanted to make it brighter, I push them up. Yes?
When you say drag down,
So yeah, I'm physically clicking, holding down on the mouse and pulling towards me or pushing away with the mouse. So it's just a matter of pulling towards me or pushing away. As I come towards me, it gets darker. As I push away, it gets lighter.
you're doing that on the picture though, correct?
So yeah, so whatever color you want to work on in the picture, you can do that. So if I want to come up here in the sky and click on that and make it darker, look what's happening to my sky. Pretty nice. You can see the blues moving and the aqua are moving up there.
Now, as you're holding your mouse, does it matter if you are holding the right clicker or the left clicker?
Well, if you have a two-click mouse, it would be the left side. Excuse me, okay. Left side. I'm using an Apple mouse, which is kind of has the left and right, but yeah, it would be the left side on most Mises. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. So this photo, we didn't hop on the clarity at all yet. We didn't work the texture yet. Let's see what dehaze does. It's going to bring in my sky a little bit more. And so now as I check my blues, I've got a good solid blacks working there, but I want even more. So I'm going to bring the blacks down a little bit. My highlights are down. Now, kind of contrary to making the blacks blacker, I'm going to open the shadows just a little bit. So especially here on the right side, I get, and in the buildings in between, I'm going to get just a little more detail in there, but it's still going to maintain my blacks. So that's looking pretty good. Now, if I want this sky to be even better, I can get the graduated filter, bring it down from the top, and I'm going to turn on my mask overlay, and I'm going to mask off the building so I get only the sky. And I'm going to use the, let's do it with luminance and get rid of the darker parts. Okay. Now, as I change my color temperature in the sky, my sky gets darker. Ooh, now I'm getting some real drama happening up there, aren't I?
I'm sorry, could you just go over the part again? How did you just isolate the sky and use the graduated cylinder?
Sure. Sure, let me delete this one and start over. So I'm going to click on my graduated filter. I'm dragging from the top to the bottom. And I'm coming down here on the lower left, show mask, select a mask overlay. So whatever's red is what's being masked off. And so there's a couple of ways of saying, I only want to mask certain areas, I don't want to mask all of it. For this shot, it's easiest to do it with luminance, meaning brightness. And so as I slide the left side towards the right, anything that's dark in the picture is going to not be masked off. See that? I could also do it as color. So if it was color, I would click on the color selector, and now I'm going to drag in the sky where it's blue, and it's only going to select what's blue. In this case, that might even be more better. That's pretty nice, actually. Let's stick with that. So then as I change, then I turn off my mask overlay and change my color temperature. I'm affecting only the sky up there.
How did you turn on and off the mask overlay?
Two ways. The easiest way is the keyboard shortcut is tap the O key, the O on your keyboard, or you can click in the lower left of the screen, show selected mask overlay. But probably the keyboard shortcut that I use the most is turning that on and off. So just tapping the O turns it on, O again turns it off. So on, off. And as long as it's on, you can't see any adjustments you make, so you need to turn it off to make your adjustments.
And
Loren, can you show again how you erased off the building?
how does it know that you wanted that area, that's the masking area?
Okay, we'll do that again. So as I create my, once I create my graduated filter and I turn on my mask so I can see what's being masked. So anything that's red is being masked, right? I'm coming down to range mask and I'm clicking on color. Then I'm using the color selector tool to click and drag across the sky. So in the sky is only going to be blue. So anything that has a blue tint that's in the mask area is going to be selected. And anything that doesn't have a blue tint is not going to be selected.
Yep, that part I got. Thanks, Loren. What I'm confused on is when you put the graduated filter there onto the picture and you click that mask overlay, why is that red shading only up on the top?
Okay, because I'm creating a graduated filter. It is created by whatever direction you click and start to drag. So let me turn off my overlay. Let me make that adjustment. I'll show you another one here in a second. Okay, let's say that's where we wanted it. So now if I wanted to create another one here on the bottom, because I think this is too bright in my lower left. So I'm going to click from the lower left and drag up. And the farther apart that I drag, the more gradual it'll be. And this I want to be pretty gradual. So from the direction that I'm dragging to the first line, let me just overdo it so you can see it really easy. From the first line, from the direction I drag from to the first line, whatever I'm going to do is going to happen at 100%. From the first line to the second line, it's going to be 100% and graduate down to 50%. From the middle line to the third line is going to be 50 to 0, and anything in the direction that I drag outside of that line is not going to have anything applied to it at all.
Perfect, thank you.
So in this case, if I'm changing my exposure, which I wouldn't do, I would probably jump on the highlights and see if I can bring those highlights down, but I can't, so I am going to jump on the exposure and just darken that corner down because I don't want your eye going down there. I want you looking up at this building.
Okay, great, thank you. That helped a lot.
Okay.
Loren, how did you use the luminance to get rid of the coloring from the building?
I'll show you on another photo. We'll do that again. Well, the answer to that is luminance looks at the tonal value of the scene to determine where the mask should be as opposed to color. So the color selects color to change the masking area. The luminance looks at luminance or brightness of the scene and not the color. But we'll do it again on another one. So this is my before, which was a pretty ho-hum photo. Now I've got one that's got some drama to it, right? Because I brought those blacks into the scene. I like drama. So again, click on black and white in the develop module, and I'm gonna hop on my clarity, see what that does for me, get me some texture coming into it. I'm gonna see what dehaze does of this photo. I don't know, not much, not much that I like. Let's put it that way. Not much that I like. So our highlights seem a little hot, so we're gonna take them down a little bit. Maybe our whites are a little too white. I still want to have some good white punch in it. So, and my blacks are already black, but can't have blacks too black. Now this one, I know I had real strong blue sky. I put the polarizer on the filter, polarizing filter on the camera, and as I bring this blue over, you know, I can make this picture just really have a funky feel to it if I want, you know. And again, I've heard people say, well, that's not a true looking black and white conversion. And I say, how do you know? You know, how do you know what it's supposed to look like in black and white? You know, if you're 100% colorblind, then you can tell me what it's supposed to look like in black and white. But any other black and white conversion is just, you know, somebody's decision on what color they want those tones to be. So there's no right or wrong. It's all whatever you like, whatever you want. So this one, you know, I like my little bird flying through there. So I don't, when I take my blues all the way dark, I kind of lose my bird. So I want to keep the blacks on him just a little bit there, just a little surprise element. But picture like this, you know, that's as long as it takes me to convert. It's a, you know, it's a pretty quick conversion. You know,
If you wanted to make that bird standing out a little bit more, could you actually do it, or is it just too small?
Well, there's a couple of things happening there. One, the bird's wings are black, so you'd either have to make this whole window lighter to make the bird pop more, which you could do. Let's do that. So let's use the adjustment brush. And I'm going to turn on my mask overlay by tapping my O key. And I'm going to make sure my auto mask is turned on. And I'm just going to, let me make my brush a little bigger so I can do this fast. I'm just going to mask off the window. And I'm going to be a little sloppy and do it fast here. Let me see if I can not get the bird. Oops, I slopped over. So if I hold down my Option on Mac or Alt on Windows, I can erase that little part. Let me just get in there and get him. So normally I would zoom in on it a little bit more so I could get a good clean masking going. Okay, so again, everything that's red is what we're masking off. So that means that's what we're going to be working on. Now let me turn off my mask overlay. And see what happens when you just change the color temp there. So now we've made that. Let me go smaller so I can see how it looks. Now, that window being brighter looks a little weird compared to the rest of them. But again, I can change just that window based on changing the color temp. Obviously, I've got a spot down there I didn't get, but you know.
Thank you very much.
Yep. You know, you can work the saturation too. That'll sometimes make some difference. In this case, not. You never know. You just play with it and see what happens. So when I see a scene like this, I'm salivating black and white because I know puffy clouds always look great, and I don't have detail in here that I want. That's important to me. So. Let me turn off my mask. Let me click over here, and just hitting black and white is looking cool already. But let's just jump on dehaze and see what that does to our sky. Ooh, the drama. Here it comes. Little clarity. Ooh, here comes the drama. Make my blacks black. Now it's looking a little hard for me, so I'm going to back off that dehaze. Bring down my highlights a little bit. So now, again, if I want to work the blues in there, I can. If I want to brighten that up. Or, you know, what do we have in the trees? Probably green and yellow in there. So again, if I want to get more detail in the trees, I click on the adjustment tool, slide up or down to make it darker. So again, it's just however you want it to look. You know, if you want it to be really funky, you make it black. If you want it to have the touch of detail in there, you know, you make it white. I mean, this one, I got crop it right away. I like this one really tight. You know, so what happened with our blues here? Looking pretty cool. Looking pretty cool. So it can save pictures. I hope Marsha's not on the call. Marsha, are you on the call? Good. So, you know, in color, this is a picture of a person wearing purple sunglasses and neon green jacket, right? That's not what I want the photo to be about. So this is a perfect candidate for a black and white. And again, I'm going to make some global adjustments overall, maybe on the clarity, maybe not. Since Marsha's probably going to watch the replay, I'll be careful here. But as I increase the clarity, I increase Marsha's one little wrinkle, right? And especially if I go on texture, I'm really going to make her complexion feel pretty nasty. But if I take that texture to the left, now I'm smoothing her out real nice. But the rest of the picture still looks sharp, you know, because I've only really messed with the very fine detail like skin pores. So texture is a great thing to work on skin with. And even though it's doing it to the whole picture, you know, the glasses still feel sharp, her teeth feel sharp, the camera is sharp, you know, her backpack ring here is still sharp, but her skin just smoothed out, which I'm sure there's very few people who object to that happening, right? So let's do a little dehaze, see what happens with the sky. I'm not loving it, so I'm not going to do anything there. But for skin tones, almost all complexions are orange. So if I want to brighten her face, I'm going to hop on the orange slider and just open up her face. And now I'm getting what looks to be a good exposure on her face, even though my exposure wasn't perfect on her face.
What were the settings for that picture? I can't see it.
I'm down here in the orange slider in the B&W area. So that's all I'm doing is hitting orange at the moment. I'm going to try the blue and see what that does to my sky. It's going to...
No, I can't tell what f-stop and what...
what f-stop? I don't know. F18, 13th of a second with a 16 millimeter lens.
16 millimeter, thank you.
Yeah. So interestingly, as I change the blue slider, watch what happens in her sunglasses. So I can either increase or decrease her sunglasses as the sky changes. Isn't that wacky? So in this case, I might want to just leave the blue there, grab my graduated filter again, come down from the top, click and drag down from the top. And if we change our temperature there, we're putting some detail in the sky, and we might just drop our exposure up there a little bit. Or our highlights. Or dehaze the sky only and not the rest of the picture. So this is another case where if we didn't want these trees to be also getting, let's say we're going to do a heavy dehaze. So now those trees are really getting black and they're looking kind of funny. If we don't want them to be in there, we hit our range mask. And this one we might use the luminance. And now as I slide from the left side, well, let me turn on my show my mask. As I slide from the right, you can see the trees no longer have the mask showing, but the sky still does. See how that works? And you can adjust the smoothness of that, how that's happening. I usually leave it at the 50, the default, but you can adjust that too. So now when I turn off my luminance mask, as I make adjustments to the temp or the dehaze, I'm not affecting those trees at all. Pretty
Loren?
nice. Yes.
Hi, this is Vince. I may have missed it at the beginning. Why are you getting more detail in the sky by changing your white balance?
Because the conversion from color to black and white, the blues become darker. And especially if I adjust the blues to be darker down here in the B&W mix. So in the old film days, you would have put a red filter on your camera and that would make the blue sky darker. So now instead of doing that, you just mix the color down here, and as you change when you change the temperature, you're changing the color. If I did it to the overall picture, it would affect the whole picture.
So you're making the image colder by sliding to the left, so you're adding blue?
Correct. Correct. And for the sky, I was just only doing that to that area we had masked off.
Uh-huh.
So not to the whole picture, just the sky there.
Thank you.
Could you do it one more time, Lauren, on how you isolated the trees from that?
Sure. So I have my graduated filter, turn on my mask overlay so I can see what I'm doing. And then it's down here under range mask, and I'm using luminance, which means brightness. And here's the range. Left side is dark, right side is white. So if I would rather just adjust the dark parts of what I've masked off, if I slide from the right to the left, you can see, hopefully, that only the dark parts still have the mask on. The clouds don't have any mask on them. As I move it back to the right, the clouds have mask. Now when I grab the left side and drag it to the right, the dark parts don't have mask, but the light parts do. So again, this one would work really well using the color. So sometimes you use one, sometimes the other, because we have a lot of blue here. So I'm selecting the color pointer, gonna click up here and drag in the photo, and boom, it's only masking off the blue. So as I make changes, I could just change the exposure to the blue now.
Would you do that again, please, Lauren?
Sure. Let me take us back to 0. So using the color range mask, I've already got it on. Let me done it so I can redo it. All right, overdone. So I'm going to select that graduated filter we already selected. So I'm selecting the color range mask, and I have to use the color range selector. So it's the eyedropper. And then I click and drag on the photo over whatever color it is I want to be selected. And if there's multiple colors, you want to drag over multiple colors, and you want to, as much info as you can give it, it will work on. So if I just wanted it to be on the green of the trees, I'm just going to select the green of the trees or the blue of the sky. Okay.
And that's setting what's going to have a mask on it?
That's showing so whatever is being masked is what's being affected by whatever changes we make on the right side. So if we decided, let me turn off the mask so we don't see it. If we decided we wanted the exposure to go down, it would only change that part of the picture, not the entire picture.
Lauren, this is Matthew. Quick. Selector or the color selector, does that work only for the graduated filter, or does it also work for the radial filter?
It works for the radial and the spot healing, or the adjustment brush. Yes, all three.
It does work for all three. Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So again, if
I have a question. When would you, why would you choose color versus luminance, luminance versus color in terms of the
it depends on what you're trying to mask off. So if you know there's just a blue area that you want, you can just grab the blue. If it's, I'll show you on another photo, if there's an area that has multiple colors, but they're all light and you want to not mask off the dark parts, you'd use the luminance. Or if there's an area that was dark and you wanted to mask off the dark but not the light, then you'd use luminance and just select the darker parts. Okay.
Excuse me, if there was, let's say, something in the middle of your photo, would you just use the radial filter then, as opposed?
Radial or the adjustment brush. Right.
Okay, thank you.
So say I wanted to tone down her jacket. You know, I could just grab the adjustment brush, turn on my overlay, and select that. I'm just going to do it really fast. Turn it off, and now if I want it to be black, it's black. And I did a really good job of masking.
Loren,
Yes.
when do you use the radiant as opposed to the adjustment brush?
I rarely use, if I was only doing her face, then I'd probably use the radial tool and try to make it fit to her face kind of thing. I find I don't use it much at all. It needs to be something that's circular around. You know, in this case, that wouldn't be too bad. That's a good look for her. Yeah.
Don't show her that.
Yeah. This is looking really, really good.
You got the reflection of the camera in her eyeglasses.
Yeah, now we can see me.
Yeah.
Or is that her camera or me?
I don't know. It looks like.
I don't know. Who cares? Anyway,
Yeah.
let's jump to another one. So again, a scene that's got some great light. I put my polarizer on to really darken that sky, and knowing that when I went to black and white, this baby is just going to sing. And so punch my clarity on this one. I'm going to punch my texture. This one, I'm actually going to bring the whites up a little bit to give me a little bit more whoop. And then when I get on the blue and take it dark, now I really have some dramatic light going. Make my blacks even a little blacker. So I've got detail in here. If I don't want that, I could probably work on that. What color was that? And it's kind of got a blue working, doesn't it? So picture like this, I might bring my highlights down just a touch. But for me, I'd tone that about that fast. You know, this picture, I wouldn't need to spend more than 30 seconds to make it a good black and white. And it's got just lots of punch to her.
Loren, you had mentioned that at the beginning of some of these, you would go to profile and choose monochrome, but you haven't done that on the last several photos. So I'm wondering, when do you know to choose monochrome under profile, and when don't you select that?
If your photo's more than 2 years old, you probably need to get into the profiles. But when you pick black and white, it'll automatically select your profile as monochrome. So
okay.
For the most part, you don't need to worry about it.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Hey, Loren?
Yes.
This is Al. If you're amenable, I would really like to see you work either number 1 or number 18 on those portraits.
Oh, we're gonna get there. Yep.
Hey, thanks.
Yep. Let me do one more landscape here, and then we'll get on that. So we're going to black and white. So you may have noticed this time when I hit black and white, the profile says Adobe Monochrome. What one were we just on? New York. And it only says monochrome. So if you really wanted the Adobe Monochrome, the newer profile, you got to come down and dig it out. But I haven't noticed that it makes a huge difference, so I usually don't pay attention. So let's close that. Black and white, Adobe monochrome. We're black and white. So this one, when I see a sky like this, I'm thinking, oh baby, that's going to be some great black and white. Color, just, you know, let me go back to color. Color, it's just pretty damn drab. Black and white, that's going to punch, and I'm going to punch it first with the dehaze. Oh lordy, looky already. Hey, I've got a sensor dust spot. Hit it with the clarity. Little bit of texture. Make sure my blacks are black. My highlights, I can either make it just a little bit brighter, make it darker, however I want that to look. I don't want my blacks even blacker on this. I want to make sure that church is black. But I'm gonna go even blacker because I want that ground to be black in this one too. And now if I open my shadows just a touch, I'm gonna bring that sky back in. I'm feeling some noise in there, so if I'm worried about the noise, I can smooth that out down here. So again, this picture, I might work a little bit more. I'd probably go in individually, brighten the windows and brighten the light parts in the steeple there. Get rid of a hot spot there, but and get rid of the big glob up there just by using the spot removal tool. Yeah, that's a bad one. That's another bad one. Okay, so we got rid of those. But you know, suddenly a picture that was looking pretty drab now has some pretty good punch to it. Pop in, okay. So a good black and white here. So again, I'm going to hit clarity, and I'm going to give this guy texture because he's got a face, right? This is a guy down in Cuba. He loved his cigar. So I'm going to just do a little dehaze, but I'm kind of losing the smoke in the background. But I know that background was pretty yellow. So as I darken the yellow, here comes my smoke back. Maybe some orange back there. So as I adjust the orange, I'm going to adjust his face. So again, I can make his face as dark or as light as I want by jumping on the orange. You know, and so like in this case, blue's going to have not a lot happening. The shirt's got some blue in it. Background was kind of green. So I can, if I want to darken the background even more, just bring that green down. So this one, I'm probably going to bring the highlights down a little bit to get a little detail on his shoulder there. But I'm going to bring the whites up so that that smoke really pops. So for me, just his face a little bit darker. And our blacks. Pretty sweet black and white, isn't it?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
Loren, is there anything you can do about the cigar, like make the cigar sharper or
nope.
anything to make it pop?
Nope. No, it's out. It's out of focus. But for me, I want you looking at his eyes. You know it's a cigar. You know the smoke's coming from the cigar. So detail in the cigar is not important to me on this shot. Another cool guy in Cuba. So again, I want lots of detail in his face. So I'm going to hit that clarity pretty hard. I'm going to hit that details pretty hard. I got to crop this the way it should be right away, or else I get a little nutty. So let's crop her. Let's get some crop working here. Got to give him an elbow. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to bring the highlights down a little bit. Orange to work on his skin. See how much detail I'm picking up in his arms now and his face, so just how much do I want to do? And I don't remember what color the background was, so I'm gonna hit that adjustment tool, click on that background and see what we get. Not much. So we're changing his shirt, but we're not doing much to the background. So I'd have to mask that off and darken that down if I want to darken this area. Let me take a look in color, see what color we had back there. Well, there's not much color, that's why. That's why, no color there. Get our blacks. Now I'm gonna open the shadows just a little bit so I get a little bit more in his eyes there. But just as a quickie, that's pretty nice too, huh?
Loren, can you use that little plus minus slider again that you checked the curtain with? Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that just adjusts whatever color's in. So when you click on that, so what color is there's not much color in this shot. So skin tone is going to be mostly orange. So as I click on it and drag towards me, it gets darker. As I drag away, whatever color is underneath that target gets lighter.
Hey, Loren, Jim
Yes.
Collymore. I was wondering, I don't have Lightroom, but I do have Photoshop Elements 2020. Is any of that functionality in Photoshop Elements?
I don't know. I've not seen, I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. This is good enough reason to pay Adobe for the Lightroom. So a photo like this, again, I'm loving what's happening with the colors and individual colors. So let's just get in there and get that detail to really jump out at us. And again, we can click on this. That barn door is probably red and orange, so I can make the door, you know, whatever I want it to be.
Loren, what are you sliding there? Are you working on your mouse to slide that little?
Yep. So so you see, hopefully, let me make it lighter here so you can see the crosshair of the cursor. Then when I click and hold down, I slide the mouse towards me, it gets darker. Slide it away from me, it gets lighter. And I'm holding down on the mouse the entire time.
Thank you.
You bet. So it's just a click and drag. When I let off, the cursor comes back. Okay. So one more real quick here, and then if anybody has questions, because this is pretty much all I do to photos. So this one's crooked. This is another cloudy day that I thought, well, this isn't gonna look too good in color, but black and white, this can look pretty sweet. So I'm gonna work those clouds, bring that dehaze in. I'm gonna open my shadows to make the church brighter. Some clarity, texture. Now, if I use my adjustment brush and I want to brighten this part of the steeple, I can do that, hopefully. Let me quickly cover that, turn that off, and now we can either see what happens with the highlights, shadows. Okay, maybe we need to just punch the exposure a little bit. So, you know, I can bring up that, you know, I could do this to the whole church if I wanted to just make it really jump out from the rest of it. Okay, go ahead and do that. Make it jump. Make it jump.
Loren, is there a way to copy the color picture so that you keep both the color picture and make a black and white?
Yes. So you create a virtual copy. So if you let me get out of the tool. If you right click on the photo, come down to create virtual copy. In your film strip, you'll see another copy of it appear, and the copy will have a corner turned up on it. So if you want to reset this one to your original settings, you have that one in color, then you have another one in black and white.
I'm sorry, Loren, how did you create the virtual copy? I've been trying to figure that out.
Right click on the photo. Come down to create virtual copy.
Ah, perfect. Thank you.
And why were you making a virtual copy?
So if I want to have a color version of the photo and a black and white version of the photo, I've got that. And you know, Lightroom doesn't work on the originals. It's only working on the copy. Essentially, all of them are virtual copies that it's making. And
Right. Okay. Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Lauren, this is Diane. I have a question.
Yes.
You masked out the top of the church, and then you went ahead and lightened it, and your mask didn't go over the whole church, but when you took your cursor down, it lightened up. Did I miss something?
So I was continuing to paint.
Yeah.
So initially I only had, let me turn that on. Initially I only had that much of it masked off. As long as my cursor is a plus sign, as I continue to paint or click and drag, it's going to add mask to it. If I hold down the option or on Mac or Alt, I believe it is on Windows, the cursor becomes a minus sign. So if I want to take the mask off of something, I can do that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Now when I turn it off, you can see that that part didn't get adjusted.
Okay, thank you. So now I have another question.
Okay.
Do you have time to do number 19, the guy with the big white beard? If you just do the beard?
Oh yeah, he makes a great black and white. Let me turn off my mask, click him on black and white. So that one just jump all over that clarity and the detail. And I bring the highlights down a little bit on him, but now when I go to the orange, watch what his face does. You know, I can make him look as tan as I want. So a little dehaze will bring down the background. Obviously I went too much on the orange. But this one, you know, if I want to change the color of his shirt or the background, you know, hopping on the blue, and I think he's got some red in his shirt there. Nope, red in his face.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So that is pretty much what I do for black and white. You know, it's not a big, crazy process, but getting in those individual colors really makes a big difference. And, you know, if you do local or global, it really can make things pop. Any other questions at this point?
Yes, Lauren, it's Gil.
Hi, Gil.
Hi. So I have a different tag here. Can you speak a little bit about the use of the tone curves, and especially with midtones with black and white?
No.
And that might be good.
That's an advanced thing, and the tone curves really, pretty much everything that you can do here, you can do with sliders. So the tone curve is an hour on its own. So I don't want to try to get into that too much. Maybe I will do an hour on the tone curve.
Yeah, it seems like this would be, black and white would be a good candidate, especially with the midtones of trying to tweak some of that gradation.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hey, Lauren, this is.
Go ahead, Russ. Looks like Russ might have frozen up on us.
Russ,
So I do want to point out that I do have some Lightroom classes coming up October 20. So learning Lightroom October 20, 22, 24. And then an advanced Lightroom, Lightroom the next level is on May 2nd. So if you want to learn more about Lightroom, those classes are going to be out there.
Lauren, it's Ellie.
Hi, Ellie.
Hi, I have a question there. The last picture you were on, when you switched to this, when you said, oh, let me get out of what you were doing, when you switch to the next picture, doesn't it automatically default, or you have to get out of everything that you were doing?
If you have an adjustment brush on and you don't leave the develop module, when you go the next photo, the adjustment brush will still be active. So if you don't hit done before you go to another photo, it'll still be active.
Is that the only thing that you have to turn off?
No, any of the Any of the
Anything
tools
you're
on the
work-
top. Yeah.
Anything you're working on.
Any of the tools on top. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Who drew on my picture?
I did. I'm sorry. That's Tanika. I'm so sorry. I wasn't trying to.
I don't know how to erase that. I better figure that out because somebody could write something naughty on there and I don't know how to erase
Oh
it.
my gosh. I do have a quick question though, Lauren. If you wanted to change, let's say in the current photo, if you wanted to change the color of the water to blue, could you do that, or how do you do that?
Ooh, in Lightroom that'd be pretty tough. Photoshop,
Okay.
you can spend some time and get that done.
Okay.
That'd be pretty tough in Lightroom.
Hey, Lauren,
Yes.
if when you do selective color, you have to start with the color. You don't work in black and white, correct?
Well, no. I mean, it depends. So one thing you can do is, let me get out of what the hell I was doing here. So a picture like this, if you take that to black, so if you wanted to have just a blue sky, you could take the saturation out of the color of the orange and the yellow, or you just use the Gomer and just suck the graduation out, or the saturation out of globally all the color. Or you could do it the other way. You could just take the saturation out of the sky. So selective color, as far as doing it that way, yeah, that's doable.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Could you go over the adjustment brush one more time in terms of like, how do you turn it on and when are you going to use it?
So when am I going to use it is anytime that I want to brush something into the photo. More darkness, so turn it on, you click on in the upper right corner is the adjustment brush, and now it becomes a plus sign, and as I tap my O key to see where I'm brushing, so anything that I'm brushing is going to be adjusted however I want to adjust it. So in this case, let's just say I'm going to bring my exposure down in the corners. So, you have control over all of these things here on the right side within just that brush.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Lauren, this is Debbie.
Yeah.
So on top of what you just did, you said earlier that you could change it to a minus and then you'd be adjusting everything outside of that. How do you change it to a minus?
Right. So you hold down the Option key on Mac, or Alt, I hope that is. Is Alt the second key over on Windows?
On a Mac.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Just to the right of the space bar.
It's mine is on the left of the space bar, but it's got actually one on either side.
Yes, actually on both sides.
It should be two, yeah, it shouldn't be the one right beside the space bar. So next one over. Two away from the space bar.
No, it's only one away from the space bar. Or it's actually right next to the space bar on either side.
Okay, then what's the other key? Then it's control, not control. It might be control on Windows then.
Yes, it is, Lauren.
Okay, it's control, not, well, push down on them, see which one becomes a minus sign. You damn Windows people.
And Lauren, the other way to do it is simply click on the right-hand panel.
What? Yeah. Yeah,
It's
but it's
control,
so fast.
function, Windows, and Alt.
What was that, Gina?
It's control, function, window, and Alt.
Maybe it's control it. Well, see which one, push down on them, see which one it is. That's my suggestion as you're flying along, or you can do it over here, but it's just so much faster to hold down a keyboard. Okay, other questions?
Loren, was this recorded? Some of us got in late because of the storm.
Yes, I will edit the video. It should be posted on my website later tonight, lorenphotos.com, or I'll put it in the discussion area of the meetup group.
Thank you. It was excellent.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. I came in late, but I learned a lot.
Great.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. It was
Thank
great.
you, Laura.
Thank you, it was really great.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Lauren.
Diane.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Lauren,
Awesome
it's a
job.
pleasure.
Awesome job, Lauren. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren.
Stay safe.
Everybody be well.